It's a great day. My name is Che Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the #1 business development and revenue-focused late-night show in the country where we're on a mission. And our mission really is to empower. Our mission is to inspire. And our mission is to provide you, that's right, you, the hard-working entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this episode, we have the one and only Leilani. Did I get that right?
No.
Pronounce it for me.
Leilani.
Leilani. Okay, I was working on it, ladies and gentlemen. Leilani. I tried. Leilani, she's in the building. What's going on, Leilani? How are you?
Hi, Che. I'm so well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And I know today we'll be talking about how to use your intuition to be a better version of you. But there are a number of folks who might be listening, might be wondering, first of all, what does use your intuition even mean these days? Can you take a moment before we even talk about it, and why is using your intuition so important?
Oh my, what a question. And I'm just really grateful to be talking to people who are out there trying to do the thing. And intuition really, at the end of the day, all it really is understanding and translating our inner knowing. So that is a really big concept and kind of a small way to describe it. But really all that it means at the end of the day is that we have this quiet, sometimes super loud, knowing and information that is flowing to us at all times. And many people have different beliefs about where that's coming from. That can be from a higher power. That could be from Earth, Mother Earth, Gaia. That could be from ancestors or guides. But it can also be from your higher self. It could be from a version of you that just knows more. And so at the end of the day, connecting with your intuition is simply finding stillness, finding some quiet, and beginning to discern and decipher the messages that you're getting all the time, and perhaps not creating space to receive. Yeah.
You know, we're going to get into you, your background, and who you are in just a moment. I know the audience is curious. Some of them read your bio. Some folks have not read your bio. Some folks are just tuned in, listening. Some people listen to the podcast right now. They've downloaded it. If you're watching live, congratulations, by the way, or you're on one of our streaming platforms. We appreciate you. But you might be wondering, how do folks connect with their divine purpose? First of all, what does purpose mean these days from your view of the world? And then how do folks get in tune and connected to their divine purpose? Is that even possible, or is that just a loaded question?
It is not a loaded. I thought you were going to say a load of crap. It is not a loaded question, and it is not a load of crap. So it's really interesting because purpose, in my experience, and with the leaders and entrepreneurs that I have supported in my time as a shaman and a leadership expert, what I have seen and what I've witnessed within my own path is you cannot begin to connect with your divine purpose until you first connect with your inner knowing, your intuition. So really the first step is getting to know yourself in maybe the most intimate way you have at this point, spiritually, understanding who you are in your wholeness. What does it mean to be radically authentic, to be authentic to the point where I show up in spaces and I listen to my inner knowing and I am aligned with that self, with that version of me. And what is really beautiful about this is once you begin to understand who you are on this really expansive, energetic soul level, however you believe it to be true, when you begin to connect with this version of you, you begin to see stones light up on your path. And that is what I have interpreted as divine purpose, is like, am I seeing the signs? Am I understanding what is unfolding in front of me and aligning with those things? It's a lot simpler in practice than I think that we give ourselves credit for, because all it really means is that we're seeing the synchronicities, we're seeing the signs on our path, and we're walking in that direction. Source, God, the universe, our higher self, our ancestors, they'll never give us so much runway in our purpose and on our path. They give it to us in these little hints And really what's being asked of us in this awakening that we are currently experiencing on a spiritual level, all that's being asked of us is to take those tiny steps to begin to move out on our path. And that is what I believe is our divine purpose.
You know, for those folks that are listening, that was spot on, by the way. They're curious, who is this person talking, Shay? I like what I'm hearing. It's making sense, but they're wondering, what's her backstory? What led her down this path that she's on now, where she's sounding so passionate about it? Y'all will find out she's passionate about it. So I guess the question really is, what's your backstory? And what led you in that defining moment that led you to doing what you're doing now? You know how this works.
Ooh, Che. What was the moment? What is the catalyst that puts us on our path that we are like divinely meant to walk, right? It's such an interesting question, because for me, there have been a billion tiny choice points that I've made along the way. And yet what has always been true for me is that I am deeply tapped in spiritually, and I have been since I've been a child. I would walk into a home and know it was haunted. I've been able to sense spiritual energies my entire life. Source, God, the universe started talking to me as a child. And so in the beginning, I was really afraid of my intuition. And this is very universal for a lot of people, is like, we know we have these giftings and we've repressed them, suppressed them, because it is terrifying. It's terrifying to consider that there's a whole nother dimension, a whole nother reality that we're not seeing with our two eyes, right? And so I pushed it down. I started getting these little hints of source, God, the universe, beginning to represent themselves in my 30s. So I'm now 41. About a decade ago, I started hearing source, and I'm like, okay, like, I hear you and I think that's you. And I started being very curious, and I had this massive visioning spiritual download that happened about 8 years ago. And that was kind of like, okay, there's something happening here. My big awakening was in 2020. And I'm just going to be really frank. It was around the time that COVID started. George Floyd had just been murdered. And we were at this tipping point as a human collective of who will we decide we're going to be going forward. And I just got full body goosebumps. And so at that point, my gifts blew up. I would be coaching executives in my corporate job, and their mother, who passed away 10 years ago, would start to talk to me to give messages to them. I couldn't avoid it anymore. I was stopping people in the grocery store like, hey, your grandmother's here and wants you to know something. May I give that message to you? Like, it was just like the floodgates had opened. And it was at that point, I was married. I was in a corporate role. I had to reckon with this conventional life that I had created for myself, and how I began to notice that it wasn't aligned with what I was seeing lighting up on my path. And so I wrote a whole book about it. I wrote a whole book. It's called Paradox of the Water Bear, and it documents the 4 months of my life where my gifts really blew up, and I had to make decisions. I left my corporate career that I'd been navigating for nearly 2 decades. I left my husband. I, became a single mom. I mean, and a full-time entrepreneur. There were so many parts of my path where I had to just be super brave in honoring myself, my soul self, and in honoring my soul's path. And so, I mean, background-wise, I am a leadership expert, diversity, equity, inclusion expert. I did a lot of consulting. When I first went full-time entrepreneurial route, I was doing DEI consulting, burnt out in about a year, and Source was like, I need you to be teaching leaders and organizations and people, and who I consider earth angels, how to connect with their intuition and connect with their path, because that is my purpose. So that's how I got here.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing, by the way. Thanks for sharing the whole backstory. I didn't know that part. I know I read it, but I love hearing it from you. And we can definitely hear where your heart is. And I know this might sound a little crazy, a little far to the left here, but you talk about, and folks that are looking at your pages and so forth right now, they're all nosy. What is an earth angel?
I
And why
know.
is that
I
even
dropped. Did you
important?
like that subtle drop there?
I know what you're doing. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Okay, I'm smelling what you're cooking in the kitchen
Che,
over here.
I have a feeling you are my people, Che. Um, so Earth Angel, the term itself, it is what I use to kind of pull in my people. I identify as an Earth Angel, and really what that means is that there is this group of people who on some level have, on a spiritual level, however you want to define it for yourself, we have some rooting, some gifting in like angelic energies. So many of us, and what I'm hearing Source God, the universe, say in this moment is there have never been so many earth angels in one place at one time in 3D form. Like Source God, the universe was like, I'm sending in this like really sparkly divine army to help people remember who they are on a soul level, because our world is one that is ready to awaken, and yet we kind of need this little like boost, right? So earth angels identify in very different ways many times. So they're deeply intuitive. There are some common characteristics. We're deeply intuitive. So kind of what I described to you, like Source God, the universe has been speaking to me for my entire life. Like that, a lot of times people have had that sort of presence in their life. Generally, we're very kind of sensitive to energies. Many identify as highly sensitive people, empaths. We take on emotions of the group, of others. We have like this innate desire to be leaders and to create things that don't exist in this world. We're very overwhelmed a lot of times by the hate and the violence and the things that we're seeing, the genocides that we're witnessing. We get really overwhelmed, especially if we don't have our people, if we haven't found our other earth angels in this world. I mean, so there are these like common characteristics where we're here to help. Most earth angels have been hearing their entire life that we're super sweet and we want to help, like we're super helpful. And I've encountered earth angels on my path that I didn't realize I wasn't connected with the term, but I'm thinking of this man, this teddy bear of a man. His name was Sean. I remember his face and him, like the experience of who he is, clear as day. I was staying in a hotel for work, and I had just gotten some really hard news about the world. Like, I'm not going to get into politics, but I was like feeling very hopeless. And I had had an evening with Source where I felt so hopeless, which is a really hard place for earth angels to be. When we feel hopeless, it's like the end of the world is how it feels. And so I woke up the next day. Sean, this beautiful man, was like making me an omelet. And I was just like, I hadn't slept. I felt like terrible. I was still feeling hopeless. And he said to me, you are like, you have the most beautiful smile. Like, you just kind of seem to light up the space around you. And I started sobbing. Like, Sean is an earth angel, was an earth angel, not even sure he actually exists here, but he was the one that reminded me of my light. So if that is an experience that you have had with others, or if that is an experience that you have and others reflect to you, you may be and probably are an earth angel. Yeah.
I believe that. I believe that with every fiber in my heart and every fiber in my being. And, what do you enjoy most about what you're doing now? Again, I see you lit up. I see the fire in your eyes. You smile, you giggle, but inside you're like, oh, I'm a badass, Shay. I'm ready to make a difference and help other folks. So what do you enjoy most about what you're doing?
Oh man. Thank you for seeing my fire. That's actually very affirming for me because I've been reconnecting with my badassery lately. Uh, Gosh, what don't I enjoy about what I'm doing? It's, I think the most beautiful part of being so deeply aligned with who I am on a soul level and being so deeply aligned with my divine path is that everything that I encounter throughout my day as somebody who's just working and writing and podcasting is that I'm constantly seeing the miracles with every single moment. Like now, like Che, we'd never met. And I'm like, I feel like I know you. And the way that source, God, the universe, the way that our higher self flows us people and experiences and situations. I mean, Che, you just dropped into my DMs. It was like, you want to be on my show? I was like, what show? Okay, sure. Like the magic of being so deeply aligned with the energies around me that only want us to succeed, that only want to support us. There is this fire and this magic that happens, and it's like all day. And not to say that I don't have bad days, because we all have bad days. We all get cranky with our kids. We do, right? And yet, if we can see every experience, even the hard parts, even the parts where we're depressed and can't get out of bed, if we see those as moments of, okay, this is teaching me something. This is where my spirit, my heart is being led. This is where I am meant to be in this bed for this day, grieving whatever it is that our collective is experiencing, right? I think what I love the most about what I do is like the freedom to see the miracles in every single moment and every day, and to really just sit in a place of like gratitude and abundance for all of the ways that we are, like, I feel so deeply held by my community, by my spiritual support, by source, God, the universe. Like, my favorite thing is like, I stepped out on this path and sometimes I don't know how I'm going to make rent. And that's just real. That's just true and real. I mean, I feel like every single entrepreneur on this call has experienced that at some point. And like, I've never been let down. I've never been kicked out of my apartment. I've never not had food on the table. Like, there's this conspiring that happens when we say yes to the energies that surround us that want us to win. Like, there's this magic that happens when we just allow ourselves to surrender to that energy. And so that's probably my favorite thing about this work.
Thanks for sharing. I love it. And we have a segment here, as folks are listening to you, that might be wondering if your life isn't perfect. We have a segment here called Today is My January 1st. Now, for those folks who tune in every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can go ahead and say those magical words. You wait to say those magical words. Today is my January 1st. Doesn't that feel good? For all the new folks who tune in for the very first time, welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show. Today is my January 1st is our personal mantra. It represents a fresh start at the Happy Entrepreneur Show. It represents a do-over. It means our past, no matter how dark and gloomy that past is or how bright and sunny that past has been, the past no longer equals the future. So my question for you on the other side is twofold. Number one, when you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear? What do you hear? And number two, what was another time in your life where there was a setback? There was a challenge. How did you bounce back from it?
Oh, man. Well, I might answer those questions in the reverse because
Sure.
I've been getting this information, this intuition lately that I am starting my second act in my life. And the first act, and many who will read or have read my book will understand what I'm talking about. So I'm a survivor of multiple forms of like abuse, childhood trauma. I've had, like, I tell people, like, I've seen the absolute worst parts of humanity, and somehow I have this hope for our collective, for the humans and the earth that surrounds me. And so the setbacks really, I mean, I'm thinking of myself when I first started therapy, when I really was like, okay, God, source, universe, I hear you. It's time for me to begin to heal, because I had really repressed it. I was like drinking heavily. I had succumbed to a lot of numbing behaviors to basically sidestep the fact that I have had a very hard life. And when I was in my 30s, I finally started going to therapy and feeling myself feeling it all, and having to really reckon with the fact that, like, it's not all hopeful. It's not all sunshine and rainbows all the time. I had to really begin to reckon with the fact that this part of me, like this shadow that I've carried my entire life, because it started when I was a very young child, is something that I'm going to have to reckon with for a very long time. And so, I mean, I couldn't get out of bed for days. I was in grad school and working full time, and I had to like call in. I had to, talk to my teachers to see if I could have like exceptions to things. I mean, it was really dark. And when I think about what my second act means, starting very, January 1st, right? This is my January 1st. This is my second act. And it's not to bypass all that I have been through. It's like, how do I begin to integrate all of these parts of me that make me exactly who I am and give me the opportunity to connect with people who have been through something similar and say, hey, I have been at the bottom of the pit. I know what it's like. And you are so much more than the bottom of the pit. It doesn't define you. It doesn't define who you are. And so for me, January 1st is, look, I'm not going to pretend like none of that happened. And yet I know that I am a whole feeling human that has experienced some things. And yet this season for me is about abundance. This season is about finding and receiving love in all of the forms that comes. This season is about trusting and believing Source, God, the universe, when they tell me that I have work to do, that I have this power that is like meant to be expressed in this world. My voice is meant to be out there. And so, yeah, that's what January 1st, that's what I was hearing is like, it is time. It is time, brother.
I love it. And one of the things I love to do on these, and that was perfect. That was spot on, very authentic from the heart, as you've been doing throughout this whole conversation, is I love to ask the question when I have time. We have a few minutes now. What's one of the best pieces of advice that you've ever been given? And I know you've read so many books. You had so many mentors on this journey of life. You have your own podcast shows. So you've been on the other side talking to folks. But if you had to step back and say, Shay, here's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given, and here's why. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just so I frame it for you watching, I'm not asking her to come off the mountain with the 10 commandments, okay? But I'm asking her to speak from her heart and just share what's on her mind right now. And then you can lean in because you get an opportunity to walk away with one of the best pieces of advice she's ever been given. That's the question. What's one of the best pieces of advice you've ever been given and why?
So this is actually really hard for me because I am an Aquarius and I don't like people giving me advice. I don't. But when I think about, my dear, where my heart goes is Mr. John Adair. He was my 8th grade English teacher, and he was the first one in my entire life that actually made me believe that I was a writer. And I don't remember exactly what he said to me because that's just the way that my memory works, but I'm going to just kind of sum it up in energy, which was essentially just believe that you are. Because I think that my question is like, how do I become a writer? Like, that seems like what I want to do. And then 20 years, 30 years later, I actually allowed myself to do that. But my question was like, how do I become a writer? Because I really love this. This is what the energy of what he transmitted to me was like, believe that you already are. Like there's no separation between who we desire in our hearts to be and who we are in this moment, because Source, God, the universe wouldn't put that on our hearts if it wasn't already true in some way, if that wasn't already who you are deep down inside of who you are, right? And so just believe that you are. That's it. That's all you have to do.
That is well said. A number of folks struggle with just believing, and it's something that they can do inside of them. You are giving us, your time. You're giving us your expertise, and we certainly appreciate you being here, by the way. As we come down the home stretch, for those folks that are watching and that have a two-part question, they're wondering, what do you do for fun? We're not out saving the world. We're not out making a difference. We're not out changing lives for other folks. Like, what in the LL Cool J, Shay, does this person do for fun? I mean, we're just curious. Or is he always this serious?
I mean, it's such an interesting question because I have so much fun with what I do. I feel like I'm a little bit of a unicorn in that way. Like, I really love what I do and I have a lot of fun. But I will say, the first place I go is like my brain goes to my kid. He's almost 7 years old. He is just a firecracker, as you can imagine, like energetically and also just so sweet and fun. And we'll have like our dance parties and we'll walk in the woods. And so for me, he brings out this like loving, childlike, playful side that I don't always get to access because I'm so busy trying to, instill this truth everywhere. And so I think of like playing with my kid. But I also am like, gosh, I love to be creative. I play the guitar. I love to sing. I love to write just to write. And just, I feel like, again, part of my work too is just like constantly improving myself and not from like a compulsive way, but just how can I be a better human? Like reading those books and being a part of those kinds of communities, like that is fun for me. And I love to work out. I recently started lifting weights, and I didn't think that I'd like that. I play yoga, or I do yoga, and I have for a long time, and I've been, hiker runner for a while, and I just started lifting weights, and I'm getting pretty strong, and that's been fun for me because I'm like, I had no idea I had this in me, but here we are.
Oh, that's kind of cool. See, you got a lot of cool stuff going on. Thanks for sharing. For folks that are watching, they might be curious. Two-part question to come down the home stretch. Number one, what type of clients is your firm taking on these days, if any? And number two, how can folks stay connected with you over and beyond the conversation that you and I are having now? What's the best way for them to stay in contact with you?
The best way to contact me would be via email, especially for people who are interested in working with me. So either going to my website and sending an inquiry or just email me. The email is leilani@shamanleilani.com. So Leilani @shamanleilani.com. So email me. Or find me on Instagram or Threads or TikTok or any of the places. I'm at Shaman Leilani, again, spelled the same way. No spaces or dots or anything. It's just at Shaman Leilani. And in terms of clients, I'm really, really loving. I have a few offerings for like newer clients that just doing energy work one-on-one, like helping them really understand their intuition, how it's speaking to them, understanding their divine path, their divine purpose. So I do one-on-one mentorship for leaders and earth angels, and the way that my medicine works for one-on-one is I'm the catalyst, right? Like my podcast is called The Intuitive Catalyst. Like I'm the spark. And so I generally work with people for about 3 months. And then kind of let them integrate or find other ways to continue their path, their healing. And then I work with organizations. I love to come into an open organization, open-minded, and just say, hey, let's have a talk with your employees and say, what does it mean to bring your whole self to work? And what are all the different dimensions and facets with that? Including, like, let's not cause harm to historically marginalized and minoritized communities when we ask them to show up as their whole selves, right? So, and I just got goosebumps. I love just bending people's brains a little bit and just introducing these concepts in corporate. It's fun. Like, it's fun to see people really struggle at first and be like, what is this lady talking about? And then be like, oh, got it. This is universal.
when you're able to bring it all together, it's just super amazing. Well, let me first say thanks so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. I know you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. So you're giving us the most precious gift you have, which is your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shay. It was so good to meet you. And thank you again for bringing me to your community. I'm so grateful.
Absolutely. We have to have you again. And thank you to viewers. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Without you, well, there is no show. So I never get tired of reminding you every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that you're amazing. You're incredible. You're a special, unique individual. And no matter what's going on in your life, I believe for you, today is your January 1st. And because of just that one reason, your best is still yet to come. They ain't seen it yet. Your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come. With that being said, my name is Che Brown. It ain't changed. The Happy Entrepreneur. Make it a great day, everyone. We out of here. Peace. See you later. Bye-bye.